There's something exciting about your first apartment. No roommates, no parents, just your own space. Finally, I remember stepping inside for the first time, breathing in the smell of fresh paint and old wood. It wasn't perfect, small, kind of outdated, but it was mine. The rent was cheap, the neighborhood was quiet, and I felt safe. At least, I thought I was safe. The first few nights were normal. I'd come home from work, heat up some frozen dinner, and scroll through my phone in bed. It was always quiet. No creaky floors from a roommate walking around, no murmurs of a TV in the next room, just silence. And then the feeling started. I don't know how to explain it. Like when you're walking alone at night and you get that instinct, that prickle at the back of your neck, like someone's watching. I'd check the windows, the locks, even the closet, but nothing. Just my mind playing tricks on me. At least, that's what I told myself. One night, after a long shift at work, I came home exhausted. I barely had the energy to change into pajamas before collapsing onto my bed. The second my head hit the pillow, I felt it again. That feeling, like someone was there. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But for some reason, I couldn't stop looking at the shadows in the corners of my room. It was stupid. I was too tired for this. I turned over, pulled the blanket up to my chin, and closed my eyes. And then, I heard it. A sound so soft, so faint, that at first I thought I imagined it. A quiet creak, like someone shifting their weight. The kind of sound a floorboard makes when you step on it just right. I held my breath, listened. Nothing. Maybe it was just the building settling. Maybe I was letting my imagination get the best of me. I forced myself to relax, focusing on the distant hum of my heater and the ticking of my bedside clock. Slowly, I drifted off to sleep, until something woke me up. A noise. Not loud, but enough to jolt me out of sleep. I glanced at my phone. It's 3 a.m. For a few seconds, I just lay there, staring into the darkness. My ears strained for another sound, my heart pounding in my chest. And then, just as I started to relax, creak. This time I knew I wasn't imagining it. Creak. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't moving. I wasn't even breathing. But someone was. I sat up slowly, every muscle in my body tense. My eyes darted around the room, searching for anything out of place. The closet door was shut, the window locked. Everything looked normal. But I knew what I heard. For a long time, I just sat there, frozen, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the heater expanding, maybe the pipes shifting. Anything but what my gut was telling me. I needed water. Maybe that would help shake this off. Carefully, I slid my legs over the side of the bed, my bare feet pressing against the cold wooden floor. I stood up, listening. Still nothing. Step by step, I made my way to the kitchen, my heart thudding in my ears. The second I turned on the faucet, the sound of running water filled the apartment, drowning out the silence. It was comforting, almost enough to make me feel silly for being so worked up. Almost. I took a slow sip, exhaling as I leaned against the counter. Then, just as I started to relax, another noise. But this time, it came from my bedroom. A faint rustling, a shift, like fabric brushing against the floor. I felt the blood drain from my face. I turned off the faucet. The apartment was silent again, except for the sound of my own breathing. Slowly, so slowly, I crept back toward my bedroom. I didn't even know what I was expecting to see. But when I reached the doorway, I stopped. Right at the edge, hidden in the shadows. I stared through the narrow crack of the door into the dimly lit room. And that's when I saw it. A shape, low to the ground, moving. A hand, his hand, pressing against the floor, pulling his body out from under my bed. I don't remember thinking. I don't remember making a plan. All I remember is running. I ran. I didn't stop to grab my phone, my keys, nothing. I just sprinted for the front door, yanking it open so hard it slammed against the wall. My feet barely touched the ground as I tore down the hallway, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't dare look back. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to know how close he was. I reached the stairwell, practically throwing myself down the steps 2 at a time. My hands were shaking so badly I almost fumbled dialing 911. The second I heard the operator's voice, the words tumbled out of me in a panicked mess. "There's someone in my apartment. He was under my bed." The dispatcher told me to stay on the line. Officers were already on their way. I stood outside my building, shivering in the cold night air, my pulse hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every second felt like an eternity. And then, sirens, red and blue lights flashing against the walls. The cops rushed past me up the stairs, weapons drawn. I held my breath, staring at my apartment door, waiting for something, anything to happen. Minutes passed. Then I heard shouting, the sound of scuffling, and finally, silence. An officer came back down the stairs, his face grim. I was still standing there, barefoot on the pavement, shaking. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "we found him." My stomach dropped. Who was he? My voice barely worked. The officer hesitated, then sighed. "A homeless man. He must have snuck in when the last tenant left. But here's the thing." He paused, looked me dead in the eyes. "We think he'd been living under your bed for at least a few days." My entire body went numb. I don't remember much after that. The police took my statement. They searched the apartment some more. I just stood there, barely listening, my mind replaying the officer's words over and over. "He had been living under your bed." I thought about the moments I had spent in that room, completely unaware. The times I had been on my phone, lying just inches above him. The nights I had slept while he was awake, watching, waiting. They told me I was lucky, that if I hadn't woken up when I did, if I hadn't left the apartment. I don't like to think about what could have happened. I never went back. I packed up what I could in the daylight, with friends and family there, and I left that apartment for good. Even now, years later, I can't sleep without checking under the bed. It doesn't matter where I am, a hotel, a friend's house, even my own home. I was in 8th grade when I experienced the most terrifying night of my life. I grew up in the country, where nights were silent, the roads were empty, and houses sat far apart. My parents were out at a card game, something they did often. I usually went with them, but that night, I was sick, so I stayed home. It was quiet. Too quiet. Bundled up on the couch, I had a book in my hands, my old dog Julie curled up beside me, and my cat Whiskers was lying under a chair. The only light in the room came from a single lamp near me. It felt so peaceful, safe. But then Julie let out a low growl, not a playful one, not the kind she made when she heard a squirrel outside. This was deep, guttural, unnatural. My cat's fur bristled, and a sharp hiss slipped from beneath the chair. That's when I heard it. Click. The doorknob, it moved. At first I thought maybe it was the wind, maybe I had imagined it, but then, click, the doorknob moved again. This time, it wasn't subtle. Someone was testing the lock. Julie's growl turned into a snarl. Whiskers bolted from her hiding spot, vanishing into the shadows. My chest tightened. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stared at the door, waiting, listening. Then came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps on the porch. The crunch of sand shifting against the old wooden boards. They weren't leaving. Whoever was out there knew I was inside. I swallowed hard, suddenly hyper-aware of my surroundings. The house was dark, except for the lamp beside me. I was sitting in a pool of light, completely exposed. If I could see the door, then they could see me. A surge of panic shot through me. I rolled off the couch, pressing myself against it, trying to disappear into the shadows. My breath was shallow, my pulse hammering in my ears. And then, I saw him. A figure stood at the window. Tall, broad shoulders, a heavy jacket that made him look even bigger. The faint glow from inside the house illuminated the outline of his face, but not his eyes. His eyes were just shadowed move. He just stood there, staring in, and then he took a step back. For a split second, I felt relief. Maybe he was leaving. Maybe Julie's barking had scared him off. But then, I heard it. The back door. The handle rattled. A dull thud as something pressed against it. He was trying to get in from the other side. I scrambled toward the phone, hands shaking. I lifted it to my ear and nothing. Silence. The line was dead. My stomach dropped. He had cut the phone line. This wasn't random. This wasn't some lost traveler looking for help. He had planned this. A wave of cold dread crashed over me. He wasn't just trying to scare me. He was getting in. Julie was barking so violently now that she sounded almost unrecognizable, like some wild animal protecting its den. But what scared me most? Her barks didn't seem to scare him. Glass shattered. A loud, sharp crash from the back of the house. The sound cut through the silence like a gunshot. My entire body tensed up. He had broken a window. Julie went ballistic, her barks turning into deep, guttural snarls. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I bolted, sprinting down the hall to my stepdad's office. My only chance was the separate phone line in there. My heart slammed against my ribs as I reached the office, lunged inside, and locked the door behind me. My fingers fumbled with the phone as I dialed the only number I could think of. My stepdad's. It rang once, twice. He picked up. "Help," I gasped. "Someone is breaking in. They cut the phone line. He's trying to get inside." I could hear voices on the other end, his friends, people talking over each other. Then my stepdad's voice, sharp, urgent. "Stay hidden. We're coming. Now." I curled up under the desk, gripping Julie's collar, my entire body shaking. The house was filled with noise. Julie's furious barking, the wind whistling through the broken window, footsteps moving outside, slow, deliberate. Then, another sound, a new sound. Sirens. Faint at first, then growing louder, racing toward the house. The sirens grew louder, wailing through the night like a warning, like a scream. Then, silence. No more footsteps, no more rattling doorknobs, no more shifting shadows at the windows. Just silence. I held my breath, ears straining for any sign of movement. Then I heard the sound of heavy boots on the porch. But this time, they weren't his. "It's the police," a voice shouted. "You can come out." I stayed frozen for a moment, still gripping Julie. My legs were trembling as I crawled out from under the desk and unlocked the door. When I stepped out, my stepdad was already in the hallway, his face pale and tight with fear. Behind him, a deputy had his gun drawn, scanning the house. I was safe. But outside, they found something chilling. Blood on the broken window. The intruder had cut himself when he shattered the glass. He had tried to unlock the door, but the deadbolt, a deadbolt that required a key, had stopped him. That one lock was the only thing that kept him from getting inside. They didn't catch him that night. He had disappeared into the darkness. But the next day, a man showed up at a doctor's office, needing stitches. The police were already searching local clinics, looking for anyone with fresh wounds. When they found him, they ran his name. He had a history of breaking into homes. That night changed me. For weeks, I jumped at every little noise. I got sick again. No surprise there, but I refused to let fear win. I stayed home alone again. I locked every door. I closed every curtain at sunset. But I never forgot the sound of that doorknob turning in the dark. I live on a secluded property. Woods for miles. No neighbors close enough to hear a scream. I used to love that. That morning was like any other. Cool air, warm coffee, the smell of damp earth. I sat on my back porch, just relaxing. Then I saw him. A huge man with wild hair and torn clothes. He came out of the trees like an animal, and he was running, straight at me. My body reacted before my brain did. I dropped my coffee and ran for the door, slammed it shut, and locked it once I was inside. Hands shaking, I locked everything. Windows, basement, everything. Then I called 911. But as the operator picked up, I heard something. A creak. From inside the house. I live alone. I knew every sound this house made. And that was a footstep. The basement. I had locked it. I had, hadn't I? My chest was so tight I could barely breathe. I moved slowly, gun in hand. Every step, every breath felt like it echoed. Then another noise. Closer, heavy, slow. I turned the corner, and there he was. Massive, barefoot. His eyes were empty, like there was nothing behind them. But there was something else there too. Hunger. I raised the gun and took the first shot. Rock salt. He didn't even flinch. I took a second shot, this time a rubber bullet. He staggered, but kept coming. I barely had time to load the next round before he lunged. We crashed to the floor. His weight crushed me, his breath hot against my face. I tried to push him off, but he was too strong. My vision blurred, my arms shook. Then I pulled the trigger. A real bullet this time. His body shuddered, the strength drained out of him, and just like that, he stopped. I don't remember how long I lay there, trapped under his weight, heart hammering. I just remember the sirens. The police found me like that, pinned, shaking, alive. It was self-defense, no charges. The newspapers ran the story for days, but that wasn't the part that haunted me. Days later, they told me what they found. The basement window was broken. There was a pile of rags in the corner and food wrappers. Apparently, he had been there the night before. Beneath my feet, sleeping, listening, watching. The police later found out that he had escaped from a mental institution, 50 miles away. That morning still haunts me to this day. I don't sit on the porch anymore. I was 7 the night a stranger tried to break into my house. At first, it was just knocking. Soft, polite almost. If I hadn't been so hungry, I might not have even noticed. My parents had been gone for hours, checking on my great-grandmother down the road. They promised pizza when they got back, but that was 2 hours ago. My brother and I were getting restless. When I heard the knock, I was more than excited. Food was finally here. I scrambled downstairs, my brother trailing behind, pausing just long enough to save our game. But as I reached the door, my stomach sank because it was not my parents or the pizza guy. The glass panel showed a man standing on our porch, tall and wiry, and in a town where everyone knew everyone. I had never seen him before. He looked normal enough though. Jeans, a jacket, short black hair. But there was something off. He didn't look lost. He didn't look confused, like someone knocking on the wrong house. He looked like he was waiting for something. He saw me. His eyes met mine, and then he smiled. I hesitated. Slowly, I raised a finger, 1 second, and pulled the curtain shut. That's when the knocking turned to pounding. Boom, boom, boom. The door frame rattled. The knob twisted hard. My stomach twisted with it. "Who is that?" my brother whispered. He was 15, old enough to recognize when something wasn't right. "I don't know," I whispered back. We had no phone or any other way to call for help. My brother grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the kitchen. I barely registered him yanking open a drawer, fumbling through utensils, and then, snap. The first knife he grabbed broke in his hand. He cursed under his breath and snatched another, gripping it so tight his knuckles turned white. "Come on." The pounding kept going, harder and desperate. We bolted down the hallway, ducking into the laundry room. It was small, barely big enough for both of us, but it had one thing we needed: darkness. We crouched together, my breath shallow, my ears straining for every sound. The pounding suddenly stopped, a pause, silence stretching out too long. My brother glanced at me, his jaw clenched. "Is he gone?" I whispered, looking back at him. But before he could answer, the front door opened, and then we heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving deeper into the house. My brother tensed beside me, pressing a shaking finger to his lips. My own hands clamped over my mouth, trying to smother my breath. The floorboards creaked. The steps were getting closer. My heartbeat pounded so hard I thought he'd hear it. Whoever was in our house wasn't talking. It felt that they were looking for something. Then, we heard a familiar voice. "What are you two doing?" Mom asked in confusion. The laundry room door swung open and light flooded in. My brother gasped. I nearly wept. And there she was, our mother, standing in the doorway holding 2 pizza boxes. We collapsed in a heap, our words tangling together, trying to explain. The man, the pounding, the door opening. Her frown deepened, but then she just shook her head. That guy? He's just a mechanic. He was asking about the broken down car in the driveway. Your dad's outside talking to him now. My breath hitched. Mechanic? Through the open front door, I could see my dad standing under the porch light, shaking hands with the man. The same man who had been twisting our doorknob and pounding like he was trying to break in. He looked calm now, nodding, smiling before turning and disappearing into the night. Just like that. We made our parents promise that the phones would never be locked away again, sat down for dinner. But when I think back to that day now, even more suspicions arise in my heart. No for sale sign had ever been placed on that car. No mechanic knocks like that. No stranger pounds on a locked door like they're desperate. No one shakes a doorknob hard enough to break in, just to ask about a vehicle. As a kid, I believed my parents when they said it was nothing. As an adult, I know better. That night, we were in real danger, and I don't even want to know what would have happened if my parents had been just a few minutes later.